Conflicts and disagreements between parents and the children are inevitable. But the reason why our parents nagged about everything we did when we were kids is because they wished to guide us towards a brighter future, and not to repeat the same mistakes they did when they were young. But sometimes, overprotective parents, or the Tigerparents, will often raise a more rebellious child, as no kid likes to be restrained during their teenage years. Hello everyone, let's investigate here. Today, we will be talking about a tragedy that happened in an immigrant family, where the parents were absolutely strict on their daughter, and finally, the daughter could not take it anymore, and ended with the planned murder on her parents. This tragedy had alarmed countless families to reevaluate their parenthood. Jeremy Grimaldi, a Canadian reporter, even wrote a book about this to raise more attention to the rest of the world. At first, the police could not figure out who were the possible suspects. As more evidence and details were released, the police were shocked, as their primary suspect was the 18-year-old daughter, who somehow miraculously survived during a brutal home invasion, where the mother was killed and the father was fatally wounded. So what led to this tragedy back in 2010 in Ontario, Canada? Let's take a deeper look into the life of Jenniferpan. Toronto is the capital city of Canadian province of Ontario, with a recorded population of almost 3 million residents in 2016. It is the most populous city in Canada and the fourth most populous city in North America. But in 2010, there was a brutal incident that happened in this beautiful city. The suspect was Jenniferpan. She was born in 1986 in Toronto, Canada, a 24-year-old Vietnamese Canadian girl. She also had a younger brother, Felix Pan, who was 3 years younger than her. Their parents were political refugees from Vietnam in the early days, and they worked extremely hard to provide a stable life for their children. Han and Bic worked at Magna International, an auto parts manufacturer in Aurora, Ontario. The couple persistently worked hard for their money to ensure that their children had the upbringing and opportunities they themselves had missed out on. After years of hard work with diligence, they saved up some money, and in 2004, they were financially stable enough to purchase a large house with a 2-car garage on a residential street of Markham, a city in the Greater Toronto area with a large Asian population. They also bought a Lexus and a Mercedes-Benz, and also had accumulated $200,000 in savings. Their immigrant success story was inspiring within the Asian community. Who would have thought a brutal murder would happen in this diligent family? On the night of November 8, 2010, after Han finished the news, he went to bed around 8:30. Bic came back home from a dance session with friends around 9:30. Felix was in college, so he wasn't home at the time. Around 10 p.m., Bic entered her room and turned on the lights. And just 5 minutes later, 3 armed robbers broke into the house and forced the parents to come downstairs. And one of the robbers demands Jennifer to take him to the safe and take out all the cash. Both parents were shocked and begged the robbers not to hurt their daughter. After fetching the cash, the robber tied Jennifer's hands to the banisters and brought the parents down to the basement. They covered their head with a blanket and then shot them. The robbers then fled the crime scene, and then Jennifer finally phoned 911.
What's your name?
My name is Jennifer.
Someone just broke in?
Someone broke in and I heard shots like pops. I don't know what's happening. I'm tied upstairs.
Does it sound like gunshots?
I don't know what gunshot sounds like. I just heard a pop. I'm okay. My dad just went outside screaming.
Do you think your mom is downstairs too?
I don't hear her anymore.
During the phone call, Jennifer begged the police to come and rescue her, and that she didn't know where her parents were and she was extremely terrified. Han somehow survived the gunshot and crawled to the door and yelled for help. One of the neighbors saw and called the police at the same time. Paramedics arrived and sent Han to the hospital right away. The first initial medical report stated that Han got shot in the face and on the shoulder once. Both were not fatal, but Big got shot in the head 3 times, where she died right away. The police quickly investigated the crime scene and started questioning the only survivor during this armed robbery. According to Jennifer, the robbers broke into her house at night and then forced her to get out all the cash from the house. Then she was tied upstairs. She did see the robbers drag her parents into the basement, but she didn't know anything else. After extended investigation, the police found Jennifer's testimony to be a little suspicious. First of all, the door was perfectly fine. It did not look like someone was trying to break into the house. Second, the robbers only took the money. Obviously, they were to rob anything that is valuable, but how come they didn't take the Lexus nor the Mercedes? The car keys were right beside the door. Third, if the robbers decided to kill all the witnesses, how come they left Jennifer alive? The police thought Jennifer may not be telling the truth. On the following day, the police brought in Jennifer and asked her a few more questions. According to Jennifer, she was tied up, but she managed to free up her hands and dial 911. The police asked her to reenact the scene to see how she is able to free up her hands to dial the phone.
Put this in the side that you believe it was in. Great. Turn around so that you're looking away from me. You're looking exactly like, now here is where the banister is. Put your hands back behind your back, exactly how you remember they were. Okay? Now, and are you restrained from movement? How far can you move your hands from the banister?
They tied my upper arm
Yes?
around the banister,
Yes?
but my hands were bound together.
So your hands bound together, and this is the arm that's the strings wrapped around against the banister?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now how can you get to the phone? And how do you make the phone call? 911?
Mm-hmm.
And do you talk down like that?
Yes, I'm yelling at the phone like this.
And how can you hear?
I turned the volume on max.
Yes? So that's exactly the way that you're talking to her against the railing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good enough. Sit down.
According to her demonstration, she was not close to her phone at all when she was speaking with the police. But after running a series of sound wave analysis on the recorded conversation, Jennifer was speaking to the phone as she was holding it right next to her cheeks. The police confirmed that Jennifer was lying this entire time. After 3 days, Han woke up from a coma and told the police in one of the interviews that he remembered Jennifer was speaking with one of the robbers, and it seems like they know each other. They didn't tie Jennifer's hand either. These statements from Han just made Jennifer extremely suspicious. But since the police did not find out the identities of the 3 robbers, they decided not to arrest Jennifer to cause any chaos. The police decided to secretly monitor her. On November 22nd, the police brought Jennifer in for a 3rd interview. This time, the police confronted her about her lies, and Jennifer finally revealed her brutal murder plan of her own parents. At first, she would not admit her crime, until the police took out the phone that she used to communicate with the robbers, with texts and phone records. She then broke down and revealed her murder plan to the police. I did hire these killers, but the plan was to murder me, not my parents. I've had enough of my parents. They have controlled me my entire life. I had enough. I didn't want to live anymore. But I did not have the courage to end my own life. That's why I hired them to do it for me. But the robbers got it wrong and accidentally murdered my parents. After Jennifer's confession, the police finally arrested her, and they shift their focus on arresting the 3 robbers. After going through Jennifer's phone, they had narrowed down to 4 suspects and went on to arrest all of them. The trial of Jennifer and her accomplices began on March 19, 2014 in New Market and continued for 10 months. all pleaded not guilty to the charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. Despite Jennifer's effort to try to fight the charges, over 200 evidence presented to the court had made her case unfavorable to her. Jennifer and 3 other suspects were sentenced to life with no chance of parole for 25 years, and the only one that did not fire his gun was sentenced to 18 years in jail. Hans stated that when he lost his wife, he also lost his daughter, and he could not live at the house he and his wife worked extremely hard for, as he would often thought of his deceased wife. He then moved in with one of his relatives. Felix had to relocate as he was often harassed by the media. So what really happened in the Pan family? Was it the parenting style that caused all of this, or is there something else? Let's take a deeper look into the life of Jenniferpan. Like any other immigrant family, Han and Big had very high expectations of their children and hoped they would be successful and live a better life. Jennifer was an excellent student at a young age. She not only excelled in her classes, she also did really well in tutors. Jennifer started to learn piano when she was 4, and she earned multiple medals when she was in elementary school. She was also very invested in figure skating, and she dreamed of attending the Winter Olympic of 2010 to compete in figure skating, but unfortunately, she tore her knee ligament years later, ruining her chances of getting to the Olympics. Her elementary days were tough. She would attend classes, then go to piano lessons, and then figure skating until 10 at night, then get home and study schoolwork until midnight. It was only after then when Jenniferpan could finally get to sleep. Han would also ban her from hanging out with friends, attending any parties, or having a boyfriend, as these are simply a waste of time. Study and focus on getting into a top college is the only priority for Jennifer. With all the pressure, it was almost understandable that Jennifer began not to do well in school, which distressed her to no end, even though she hid it well from her parents. She also hides her emotion really well among her peers, so all her peers remember her as a smart, sweet, and a kind person. But deep down, Jennifer felt extremely unconfident and always had doubts about her life. In high school, Jennifer still worked very hard and tried to achieve more, but suddenly, the girl known for being top of the class was getting B's and C's. Unacceptable at her high-rated high school, and definitely unacceptable to her parents. One time, Jennifer had mostly C's in one of her grade reports, and she was so afraid of her parents that she decided to fake the report by using her previous report, which had all A+, and manually changed the date and classes. Jennifer was temporarily relieved from the fake report, as both of her parents bought in. Faking her report cards was supposed to be only a semester fix, a one-time deal. However, as the months went by, Jennifer continued to do poorly. As a result, continued to fake it until she made it. The only thing she remained great at was band, where she played the flute. Halfway through the junior year, Jennifer went on a trip that would make her life even more shady than it had previously been. It was a band trip to Europe, which her parents had allowed. It was there that she had her asthma attack, and Daniel Wong, who helped to calm her down from her panic. She was instantly attracted to Daniel, as he pretty much saved her life. The attraction cemented her reliance on him for the rest of her high school years. Despite her parents' insistence on no boyfriends, Jennifer began dating Daniel in secret, even skipping classes to be with him. But Daniel was a bad influence to Jennifer. Originally, they were from the same high school, but later, Daniel was transferred to another school due to his poor grades, and from there, he started dealing drugs. Jennifer was almost done with high school, and even had a college offer from Ryerson University. Then she failed calculus. With a failed math grade, the college rescinded their offer, and when high school graduation came, Jennifer simply just didn't graduate. She knew once her parents knew she couldn't graduate from high school, they would realize her previous report cards were all fake. And what would happen to her? She could not bear to think of the consequences. So she decided to lie about going to college and pursuing science, then pharmacology in Toronto University afterward. After hearing this, Han and Big were so happy, thinking their daughter will be a pharmacist one day. In order to keep up with the lie that she was in college, Jennifer would go to the library every day and research science articles and facts that seemed relevant that she might be studying at the moment, copying the notes into a book and even fake more report cards that she would then show to her oblivious parents. She did all these to make her parents think she was working really hard in school and getting good grades. She also taught piano lessons on the side, tended at the local bar, and continued to date Daniel, as attached as ever. As the years continued to pass and Jennifer got older, she began to feel more constricted by her parents' strict rules. She had an early 9 p.m. curfew, still wasn't allowed to date, and was pushed to be as intelligent as ever. Fed up with it all, Jennifer hatched another plan. She told her parents she got accepted into a pharmacology program, that she wanted to spend weeknights at her friend's Topaz house in town to be able to better travel from work and back. Her parents agreed, delighted she was quickly moving down the path they wanted her to go. However, Jennifer never ended up at Topaz's house. Instead, she began sleeping over at Daniel's house. After 2 years, she lied to her parents that she had transferred to Toronto University and now focused on graduating on time. But after a year, where Jennifer was supposed to graduate and invite her parents to her graduation ceremony, she then forged another lie, where she said, "This year's graduating class is huge. Therefore, the school had limited to just one person, which the student was able to invite to the ceremony. And one of my best friends really wanted both of the parents to attend, so I gave her my ticket." Now, for the first time ever, Han started to feel something was off, but still decided to believe his daughter. Jennifer didn't stop there. She hatched another lie and told her parents she got accepted into a volunteer program in a children's hospital. The problem with telling so many lies is that eventually you begin to slack on one lie or another. Her parents became suspicious when Jennifer would come home and didn't have a scrub uniform or identification card with her, like she would need to work at her job at the hospital. One day, Han had enough. He offered to take her to work and noted her frantic behavior when he suggested it. He and his wife dropped her off at the hospital, and Jennifer took off towards the doors as soon as the car stopped, hiding when her mom came in to check on what she was doing. It was all too suspicious. Han contacted one of Jennifer's friends, who Jennifer often stayed over during her college days, even though she was at Daniel's. After hours of questioning, the friend finally spilled the truth. Han and Bick were furious and confronted Jennifer. She knew she could not lie to them anymore, so she came clean and told them everything. That she didn't graduate from high school, there was no college, no pharmacology program, no job at the hospital, and that she had been staying with Daniels this entire time. Han was infuriated, and Bick was so mad that she felt lightheaded. They decided to lock up Jennifer at home, who was 24 at the time, and monitor her even closely. They confiscated her phone, her laptop, and even tracked her mileage on the car to see whether she was going to the places she told them she was. Jennifer became anxious and uncomfortable staying at home, especially with her father pretty much watching her 24/7. They also made Jennifer go back to only teaching piano and installed another strict curfew. Jennifer re-enrolled in a calculus class, determined to pass high school and actually get into a college for real. She also bought a secret phone to contact Daniel with, that she would remove the SIM card from, so that if her parents found it, they would just think it was a dead phone. However, all her efforts to remain in contact with Daniel, despite her parents' surveillance, was for naught. Daniel finally decided to break off their relationship, as the mid-20s-year-old drug dealer was tired of a girlfriend who still had to sneak around as though she was still in high school. He began dating another girl named Christine. This absolutely broke Jennifer and resulted in the beginning of dishonest statements about incredible illegal activities. She decided she needed Daniel back and would do anything to get him. One day, she called him in hysterics, sobbing and distraught. She told him that a couple days earlier, there had been a knock on her door. She said when she opened it, due to a flash of police badge, a group of men had rushed into her house, gang raping her. She also told Daniel she had just received a package in the mail containing several bullets. She said she knew Christine was behind all of this. Despite it being false, Daniel believed her and broke up with Christine, running back to Jennifer. Even though Daniel is back with her, she is afraid to lose him again. She knew her only problem that remained was her parents. Then she had an evil thought, which is that she wished her parents were never here. Jennifer shared the thought with Daniel. He didn't stop her, but reinforced that he could make it happen. Jennifer was hesitant at first, but knowing she could be free, and even inherit about $500K US if her parents are gone, she finally agreed. Daniel then reached out to 3 gangsters through his connection: David Malvaganam, Eric Carty, and Lenford Roy Crawford, and prepare a murder of Jennifer's parents. And then they carry out this devilish plan and resulted in what I described in the beginning of the video. Han and Bick are a hard-working couple who worked extremely hard for their entire life to provide for their children. They lived frugally to be able to send their children to piano lessons and after-school tutors, and hope they will excel in life. Immigrant parents are often known as Tigerparents, where they are strict and harsh to their children, but it is all for the betterment of them. But oftentimes, this could come off the wrong way to the kids, especially if the parents are too extreme. This definitely raised an alarm to all the parents who have strict rules and high expectations for their kids. Every kid has his or her own individual thinking and should definitely be respected. As a parent, you need to listen and communicate with your kids, rather than forcing them to become someone you wish them to be. Scolding and punishing your kids when they didn't meet your expectation are not healthy parenting, as this will only manifest fear in them, and they will do anything to avoid it. In Jennifer's situation, she hatched lies to avoid her angry parents. Over time, Jennifer grew dependent on using lies to solve any problems. She lied to her parents and her boyfriend. We need to know, being truthful is the best way to face any problems. Forging lies will only temporarily solve a problem, but later on, you will need more lies to cover up your current lies.